Hey everyone, welcome back to a long-awaited reunion edition of the Blazer Metrics podcast. It's been like 5 months. Welcome back, Larry, aka TB Pup. Larry, how you been,
Good to
man?
be back.
How have you been?
A lot of travel. Well, it's not so much me. I mean, I've been traveling all over the place. You had a kid, so my stuff is inconsequential.
Yeah, so loyal listeners who have waited a very long time for this, the reason why there hasn't been a show is because I had a kid in February. And so it's been a little bit hectic for the last few months. She's finally going to daycare,
Life's,
and things are mellowing out slightly. So
life's changed a little bit there.
just a tad, just a little bit.
Yeah.
But free time is at a premium. So, but there's just so much to talk about for the Blazers. You and I have been wanting to do a show for a while, and so we wanted to put something together for everybody and just start diving back into Portland Trail Blazers basketball. So, Larry, I want to start out just really quickly. I know this isn't Blazer related, but just wanted to ask you for your thoughts on the Western Conference Finals, the Eastern Conference. Let's start with the Western Conference Finals. The Mavs and the Wolves. I mean, would you have ever predicted that at the beginning of the season?
Um, maybe looks like there's some new teams, some new blood in the NBA, and that's great. I mean, that's the Warriors done. Um, it looks like that is done. The Lakers look done. That's great. Um, So I mean, I'm fine with that. I mean, obviously Minnesota has been forever since they've been good. Dallas was in the Western Conference Final, what, 2 years ago? So a couple years ago. So it's great to have some new blood and see some new players, and some of them might not be real recognizable for just average fans. But Doncic is one of the most unstoppable offensive players in the league. Minnesota Edwards is maybe on his way to being one of the most unstoppable offensive players in the league. So and Minnesota's doing that whole Twin Towers thing, which it's been a while since somebody's tried that. So it's interesting to see. It's a little bit different type of basketball, which is fun to watch. I enjoy seeing new teams and some new blood. So great. I actually thought if a team was going to get through, it was going to be OKC, and maybe that's good for Portland if they didn't. They might be looking for a veteran, and if you're going to trade with a team that has 30 draft picks the next however long, seemingly is maybe not a bad team to trade with.
Yeah, I honestly did not expect either one of these teams to make it this far because I thought that fully admit, I thought the Luka Kyrie pairing was a nightmare last season. So I really didn't think that combination was going to work. They went out and they got some good role players that have worked out really well for them, and those two guys are playing really well together. So I'm definitely surprised there. And then the Wolves, yeah, I thought I thought the Gobert trade was one of the worst in recent memory, and they've just really come together. So I like it. I love parity in the NBA. I would prefer it this way. I hate when it's just like one team. It's just funny that none of the teams that people thought, except for like the Celtics, none of the teams that people
Well,
thought
Boston. I mean,
yeah, but the Bucks didn't make it past the first round. The Suns didn't make it
Heat,
past the first round. The
the
Lakers are
Suns.
out. The
Yeah.
Heat are out. The Nuggets just
Well,
lost. So it's a lot
Well,
of
and you mentioned something about role players, and the Nuggets lost some of those role players and depth guys from last year, and during the regular season, it seemed to not hurt them too much, but it showed up in the playoffs. I mean, they were missing a couple of guys that had just been. I mean, they only had two guys in double figures in Game 7. No one
Yeah.
else scored more than, I don't know, 7 points, 8 points. So they were missing out on some guys that contribute and get a bucket. And on the other side, I mean, Boston's just there's no one over there. I mean, the East was incredibly weak this year.
Hmm.
Um, it was unbelievable. I mean, you've got Indiana who took 7 games for them to beat a decimated Knicks team, and it took, I think, Brunson going down. He got hurt in the final one for them to win. So, fine, win the games that are in front of you, but that's not a good team. They played no defense. Um, Philly was probably the other team. Well, and obviously the Bucks were injured too, but Giannis was out, but they still had a lot of good players, and they just didn't. I don't know. Are they that old? I mean,
Yeah, they really are.
Dame got hurt. Dame got hurt, came back, but they won one game. In fact, their best win was the game Dame was out and Chris Middleton went off. They won that one by 20 some points. So when Dame played, they only won one game.
Yeah.
And so I thought they would be better. Yes, Giannis being out, but still first round, I would have thought they would get through that. The Heat, Butler was. I mean, there's a lot of injuries over there, and just not very good teams. Where in the West, it's been battles. I mean, OKC. I mean, who doesn't think they're not going to be better next year? And the Wolves will be good again, and the Nuggets. They need to add some depth, add a piece or two. They should be good. Um, the Mavs were in the conference finals a couple years ago. So there's some good teams in the West, and you've got to play. I mean, there's a lot more length. They play a lot more defense. They're more physical. Austin's like getting a free ride. They should be pretty well rested in the finals, where the West is beating themselves up. And I would expect the Western Conference Finals to go at least 6 games, where Austin might win in 4. My
Yeah.
dog's doing calisthenics.
Yeah, I really don't see Indy. I will be surprised if they take Boston to 6 games. I just don't. They barely got past a decimated Bucks team. They barely got past a decimated Knicks team. I just don't. They've got a lot of great building blocks. I think they're going to be really good next year if they keep building on it. But the good thing for
Yeah,
the Blazers,
they need some defense.
the good thing for the Blazers
They need
is
some,
that I think we've built. There's just and we've. I mean, goes all the way back to last off season. There is an arms race going on because a lot of teams see themselves as maybe being a move or two away from being right there. None of these
and that's
teams
good.
look like
That's good
world
for
beaters, right? I mean,
no, but that's good for Portland because a
yeah,
lot of teams don't want to give up veterans that can contribute and especially to a good team. Brogdon can do that. Grant can do that. Uh, Rob Williams, if he can stay healthy, certainly can do that. He's a defensive anchor. There's guys. Simons, is going to be able to score. I don't know how many teams out there, other than a couple. There are a couple that could use what he does and then cover up on the defensive end. But Portland has pieces that some of these teams I would think would be after. Now the problem is, what are you going to get for those?
yeah,
If it's OKC, you know what you're going to get, a whole bunch of picks. If it's Ant in Orlando, what are you going to get? There's been some rumblings with that. There's been some rumblings with Houston offering up number 3, making that available. That's in a couple places that's been mentioned. Um, Obviously, they're not in the playoffs, but what do teams like Indiana and OKC and the loser of the Mavs in Minnesota, what do those teams go after, as well as teams trying to get back into it? Do the Warriors try and, add a piece and make one more run? What do the Lakers do? What do what does Denver do? Philly. There's a bunch of teams you can see wanting to add pieces, and Portland's got veterans that you would think, with their coaching situation, what they're going to do, it looks like they're going to tank.
And they
And
should.
Cronin said it. Said we don't have the talent, and they should. This is if you're going to tank, this is the year to do it. This not this draft, but the next one in 25 and 6 are loaded. You've got players in the second round, projected in the second round, way too early, but projected in the second round, that are, their comps are really good NBA players. They're like down at 50. So this they should tank this year, and I know it sucks to be in a tanking team, but I'm fine with it if you're just playing young guys to get them experience, and you see a game every once in a while that, hey, there's a sign, there's some flashes. That's great. Don't throw out Grant and Brogdon and Thibault and Aiden, and then a rookie here and there and a couple off the bench. You're gonna win too many games. You're gonna you're gonna hold back. You're gonna tamper down the development of the young guys. Play them all. I mean, the only person out there over 23, 24 I want to see is probably Aiden. Everyone else,
Kamara. Kamara will probably be 24, right?
well, he'll be 24, but over
He's there.
24. Yeah,
He's there.
over 24.
Um,
Kamara,
yeah.
but all the Kamara, Scoot, Sharp, Stanton might be. I want to we'll see what he can do with some of these guys, because he's got a unique skill set. Jabari, uh, I guess Murray. If he can get some. Who else is really young? Wop isn't a rookie. I mean, he's a rookie, but he's not a young rookie. Baji, if is he going to do anything or not? He didn't play much in the end, but for a while when he did play, I believe he was second in the league in blocks per minute, or blocks per 100 possession. So can he find something else to go with that besides being a defensive? He was a significant defensive presence when he was in there. So all of these young guys, what can they do? Run them out there, 25, 28, 30 minutes, and play the heck out of them, and see what you've got and make decisions. And with the young guys you're going to have, oh, by the way, there's a draft coming up, and we have 2 lottery picks, sadly, in a lottery that's projected to not be great. But I'm wondering if, and I'm curious what you think about this too, is it because they're not that good? Or is it because we don't know much about them? 5 of the first, I believe, 9 projected picks are foreigners. 3 of them could be from France. We haven't seen these guys. We don't know what they can do. They're not household names, so we're like, well, they're not good.
So I love this draft.
They might be.
I mean, it sucks that there isn't those generational guys. At least there's nobody that we know is a generational guy. There's not a Wemby, right? There's not even a Bankaro, right? This is the biggest mystery box draft in probably more than 10 years, because even the 2013 draft was probably a little bit more, because Oladipo was in that draft, and there was several guys that people were pretty confident were going to be really good pros. You can't even say that with this draft. This draft is such a mystery box because there's a ton of potential, right? But nobody that you're like, yep, foreign, that guy.
They're foreign and they're young. They're really young. I mean, some of these guys are just, Rayon Rupert, when he came in, I mean, he was barely 18 or something. He's another guy that I left out. You want to just get him minutes, get him on the floor, get him out there, see what he can do. And a lot of these guys, I think, and I'm going to butcher some of these names. Tajon Saloon, I've heard it pronounced a couple different ways. He's really young. Risa Shea is really young. Sar, and some of these guys have been having good games in their playoffs. Sar had a good one. Salon had a good one. Risa Shea's done some things. There's another one that I'm missing. Oh, Buzelis. Buzelis didn't do. He was G League, but he's really a foreign guy that people really only saw for a little bit. Same with Holland. So they're both young and G League, and it's like, well, it's hard to glean from that because G League hasn't really produced very good players yet so far.
No, they've all taken time to develop. That's why I actually think, Scoot will probably take a year or two more before we'll really know like if he's the guy. But
Well, I don't think he's the guy. I think he's a guy, and that's what Portland needs. Portland needs the guy to make some of these other guys that could be a guy better. I think Sharp could be a guy. Scoot, he's going to have to shoot better to be a guy, but you add someone else in that is the guy, and who are guys, and we talked a little bit about this yesterday because we tried to do a show and I was having technical difficulties. So who is, when you look at some of these guys, I mean, Sar is pretty much, it's him number one. A couple people have Risache number one, but Sar's the more collective number one, Risache, and then you get into a whole bunch of 3 through 10 could be almost anything. Think, well, it could be this guy, could be this guy, could be this guy, depending on the team. But who out there of all these guys could be the guy? Because I don't think Sar, even though he'll be number one, I don't think he could be a the guy type. I think he could be very good. I think he could be an all-star. I don't think he could be the guy. Risache maybe. Klingon, no. Castle, no. Connect, no. Great shooter, great scorer, no. Reed Shepard, no. Too small. Salon, I don't know enough about him. I've seen some things that go, wow, okay. Topic, no.
Probably Cody Williams and Holland, right? Cody Williams, if he pulls it together.
Honestly, it's Cody Williams and Holland who might not be picked as high, but in terms of somebody who could develop into being the guy, it might be Holland 1 and Cody Williams 2.
Yeah.
Which is weird because I think they're going to go in that 6 to 12 range.
It's weird.
And again, floor's not very high with they could both be maybe not very good, but they could also, I think those two could maybe be two of the best. So you're really asking Schmitz and his crew to really decipher and project out what a player is going to look like 3 to 5 years down the road, and that is tough to do.
But that's why we got him, and frankly, that's why I'm excited about this draft, because this is where he is going to earn his money. This is where he is going to spread his wings and show why he's one of the best draft analysts in the world. And I think it's
this draft is perfect for him because you're asking a scouting group. You pick the diamond out of the rough because there isn't an obvious choice. It's like you got to go pick the piece of coal that you think is going to be that person. And it sucks you didn't have, you dropped so far. You dropped 3 spots because the higher you are, the more you control, the picks. But who knows? The person that goes 3, 4, 5 could easily go, I think 6, 7, 8. It just depends on the team.
Yeah. And that's just it. Other than Sar, there is not a consensus with this draft because I've heard people think that Risache is like potentially a number 1 pick caliber player, and some people think this guy's not even that good. Like he's just gonna be, it's 7th or 8th. Like, and I was watching Sam Vecini do a breakdown of his game, that last playoff game that he had where he played really well and scored 28 points. And it was really interesting because he said that the other team chose to leave him alone. Like their whole strategy for that game, which bit them in the ass, but they just left him. They let him shoot. They were like, go ahead and shoot it. Can you imagine? Like, here's a guy that everybody is saying should be a top 3 pick, and the strategy against him is to just let the guy shoot the ball. Like, it's just kind of crazy.
Oh, well, it is, but we did that against Golden State one year, remember? But we're not going to blitz Steph Curry. We're just going to let him come off screens and shoot all day long. That was the game plan.
Good strategy.
So, who knows why coaches decide some things that they do, but would think now I don't know. Now there's been times that he hasn't looked great, and other times he looks like, man, he's got a lot of potential. But it is going to be digging out potential with these guys, because you got Sarr, who looks, I mean, he looks the part. Sarr looks like he could be pretty good, and he can shoot it, he can defend. Reece Shay's got some skills. Clingan, I don't get, and I could be dead wrong with Clingan. I see a guy that got, and I get that was a strategy, was to let Zach Edey just go one-on-one with Clingan, but it's like Edey tore him up. I mean, if Clingan was that good, he shouldn't have been able to slow him down some, and he just, what did he get, 37 in the championship game or something? And that was a guy that was at the time projected to be maybe a late first round pick, and he dominated so much in the the NCAA tournament that he played himself up. I mean, he's now a late lottery guy.
He also has really good measurables.
Like, 7'11" or 7'10" wingspan.
Yeah,
I mean, he can't
his speed
jump
too.
He really can't run, fast. But my gosh,
for his size, anyway. But yeah,
for his size.
I can't get excited about center. I can't.
Dead wrong.
I can't get excited about a big, burly, tall. It just, I can't. If he was late, maybe late lottery or like 20s, maybe. But like taking him in the top 3, like some mocks have him like in the top 3, and I'm just like, oh gosh, that's Big Country Reeves. I can't get excited about that at all. So I can't. And I know Big Country wasn't bad, but like, no.
And Castle, so you go down, and Castle's telling teams with a point guard not to pick him because he wants to play point guard. It's like, well, okay, which originally he had done, I guess, in high school, not so much at UConn. Next, a great shooter, but I mean, he's pretty athletic, but that's, he's a specific type of guy. Your point guards are small. Shepard and Dillingham, they're not very big. Popic has had 2 knee injuries already. Buzelis is one of these guys that, and I talked to Jim about this, and he goes so in depth in the draft. And I know we were talking about having him on, but he's in the middle of a huge project. One thing he doesn't like about Buzelis, he's not big on guys that have no plus in their wingspan. And Buzelis is 6'10" with a 6'10" wingspan, and he's shied away from those guys for a long time. He doesn't think that it translates very well into the NBA, where you're going to be playing someone just as athletic or more so than you, but they've got 5-6 inches of wingspan on you. What's that do to your shot creativity, your finishing ability? So he's not super high on him, even though he thinks he's got some good kind of second playmaker skills.
Yeah. I just am not excited about taking him in the top 10 is the problem. You know what else is interesting? Imansa was really talked up at the beginning of the season, and he's gone.
Oh, he was a top 20 guy. The G League had 4 guys early on in the early mocks.
He's just
gone. Had 4 guys in the top 20 and a 5th that was like borderline first round, second round. And man, Holland's been up and down the most. He was number 1 at times. He dropped down to over 13 at times. Now he's kind of 6 to 9, somewhere in there, depending on the mock. Tyler Smith is probably another one that's up there, after Buzelis. But he's a guy. I went and saw him when he was here in Portland, and some of the reactions I saw from some of the scouts, they liked some of the things they were doing that he was doing. So who knows what that means, but he isn't as high as he was, and yeah, Amontsef just fell off the board.
Yeah, he's just gone. Okay, so we've talked a lot about it, but who right now in this moment, and I know we haven't done any workouts, and there's still a month left, more than a month until the draft, but at this moment in time, let's say assuming there's no trades, nothing changes. Who are you taking at
Which there could
seven?
be.
Who are you taking? Which there could be, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But who would you take at 7?
Well, and that's the thing. Who's
Who's
available?
available? Yeah, who would
So
if
we could take a couple of mock draft. I mean, if NBA mock draft, I've got Kevin O'Connor's pulled up. I've got NBA mock drafts. NBA mock draft has us taking Dijon Saloon
that's
at
so
7,
high. That's
and
so high for
and that is,
him.
and they even say that's really high in their write up. But they talk about his energy, his shooting, which he was. I mean, he was knocking down some shots like logo, like Dame range, pretty effortlessly. Like, oh, wow, okay. He's got a lot of energy. He's got good length, good athleticism. It does seem high, but if that's who they really want, I don't think he would fall to 14. So the other one, the ringer, Evan O'Connor's. If the draft went the way he's got it, you couldn't be more happy if you were Portland, because he's got a bunch of big men going up first, Sar and Klingon, then Topic, then a couple of point guards and Buzelis. So Portland at 7 is left with Risa Shea, Cody Williams, Ron Holland, and Stefan Castle, Alton Connect, and Tijon Salon to choose from. If that were to happen, oh my, Cronin would fall over backwards and maybe almost miss the pick because he fainted. I mean, that would be your best case scenario in the world if that's who was left at 7 for you to choose from. I don't think that's going to happen. Um, Mock draft has Salon at 7. That is awfully high. But if they like him, go. I'm gonna trust Schmitz on this because he's seen these guys, tons, as much or more than anybody. If it's not Salon, I'm I'm hedging towards Holland because I think he may have the most upside. Portland needs an it guy, and he could be that. I think he has been that in the past. I think he was that in high school. G League, he was asked to play a lot of point guard, and he's not a point guard. I mean, he can make some decisions, and that got better, I think, as the season went along. His ability to be a playmaker, his ability to create shots. He's a good defender. He's got good length. Can't shoot. Now that got better too, but even though it got better, he still does not shoot well. He starts a little low for me, and he crosses his body just a bit as well. But the shot doesn't look bad. The rotation pretty good. His release is higher. That part's fine. So it should be able to get better. But he might have the ability to be a the guy type of player, which Portland needs. Now, obviously, next year, if you tank next year, there's a couple of the guy types out there, and that's what you're hoping for. You want to tank this year. You want, of all the years to tank, this coming season would be the one. And Portland fans we're just gonna have to deal with it because that's what it takes to get. You've got to get OKC got an SGA, the Mavs got a Doncic, the Wolves got an Ant, their own Ant. Denver had Jokic, and some of the Jokic was second round. I get it, but he was a the guy type. Indiana with Halliburton, Boston obviously with Tatum and Brown, kind of a 1A 2B type of thing. But they all went through some very bad times to get to those players. So it's how you handle the pick. Some people are like, oh man, well we could suck and we could be like Detroit and just be terrible forever. The Kings, 17 years. It's like, well, you could if you pick poorly, you could. But I think I think Schmitz has done a good job. I mean, look at some of the guys he's gotten, either non-drafted or late in the second round. That if there was a redraft, they're first-round guys. So
Yeah.
you have to put some faith in that and go, all right, this guy insisted that Kamara be included in the Nurkic insisted. They went and found Duop Reed. They pulled Jabari Walker. I mean, he was like the next to last pick in the draft because I think there was two picks that didn't happen that year, so or something like that. He's a very late pick. Um, Scoot was what he was. He was basically the last of the. There's three guys, and we were the last one, so we took Scoot. We're going to take whoever was left. So that wasn't really a pick of finding someone nearly as much. Now you can say, hey, missed on Murray, which yeah, probably did miss on Murray. But I his so far his track record of guys he's drafted, found, undrafted free agents, whatever, is pretty good, and we're gonna have to trust that because that's the only way Portland gets better. We're not getting free agents. We don't, trade wise, we're not going to be able to bring in somebody here just yet. It's going to have to be through the draft. So he's going to have to get some. He's going to have to outkick his coverage with this one, and maybe they trade up with seven. I've heard a couple of things about seven and a player to Houston, and I've talked to somebody that's heard some of that as well. Who knows whether it happens, but it's and Houston's kind of said that pick is available, and then at 14. Find somebody. I mean, there's been players at 14 in that area. Clyde Drexler was one. Giannis was one. I mean, there's been Kawhi Leonard was one. There's been players down there. Now they were some cases they were older and played a lot more college ball, and you had at least some idea. These guys, it's much more of a long shot, but they're going to have to find guys that are really young, develop through next year. They play them a bunch. They still lose games, and then you hope against hope that you get a Flag, a Bailey. I don't know so much about Harper. I think they need somebody bigger than that. They've got tons of guys at that height, but there's some, and there's a shooter down there that's really really good. You hope that you get that next year, and you're going to have to get some breaks. You're going to have to draft well. But that's how Portland's going to get better. A smaller market team, you're not getting players coming there. You're not getting free agents. You've got to hit it out of the park with this draft as much as possible and get lucky next year. And so you have to tank.
Yeah, I think this is, and I think that's why I like this draft so much, because it's seen as such a bad draft that this would be a good time to try to snatch, because nobody's going to give you a pick in the 2025 draft. Realistically, they're probably not going to give you a pick in that draft. So if we can get,
unless it's pretty heavily protected.
Yeah, like it's late first round probably. But then again, you yourself have said there's good players potentially in the second round of next year's draft. So like, if this is the draft where you really want to take advantage of Schmitz and you want to maybe try to grab 2-3 guys that you could see as being maybe not superstars, maybe not even all-stars, but being very good starters on a playoff team. Or guys that have that real boom or bust potential that could maybe turn into a star. Guys like Risa Shea or Salon that people just don't know. They're so raw, but they have the tools, the potential where it's like, yeah, I could see it. If I squint really hard at them, that's a guy that could be really good. But the interesting thing is, and I think you even kind of started to touch on this, and having Schmitz is only part of the game, right? Finding the talent is only half the battle. You have to have people that can develop that talent. And do we have that? Do we have the coaching staff to develop a guy like Risa Shea or a guy like Salon? Or, That concerns me because we just turned over our entire coaching staff basically, except for Billups.
Right. No, I'm prepping my resume to be an assistant coach. I mean, I've heard it. It's well, and that's a very legitimate question, because you're going to have all these young players playing a lot of time. You're going to have somebody that can develop. I mean, they need to, and I don't know whether you scrub G League coaches that are used to doing that, or an international guy that I don't know, but you need someone that can come in and it's like, listen, you're not coaching for your job, you're coaching to develop, and you like that and you enjoy that, and that's what you're going to do, and that's what you're here, whether that's as a lead assistant or whatever. But yes, absolutely, they are going to need that, because they are going to be, you would think, incredibly young if they are really trying to tank, and their coaching staff, they're thinning out, and you would think they're going to move at least Brogdon, if not Brogdon and maybe Grant or Simons or Bible or any other, person over 25 on the team. It's going to have to be somebody that can develop these guys, and even if they develop, they're still going to be really young, and it's not like they're going to be instant. Oh my gosh, this rookie came in and is putting up LeBron type numbers. We have no one that's going to do that, but can you do that to where if you add a Flag Bailey to Scoot Sharp, draft pick, Kamara, Walker, whatever,
yeah.
these guys, and if Ayton's still here, and that like, oh, hey, it clicked. It finally, after these guys have played together for a couple of years, and you add, and this, they're going to be really young, and now is there a direction with like, oh, I can see where this could get good in a couple of years. Because you could see that when in the trade when OKC got SGA, and I remember D69 being really high on him, going, oh man, that's going to pan out well for them. And as he started to play, it didn't take very long where you're like, yeah, we're going to lose for a bit. And then they had Paul come in, and they made the playoffs one year, and then he left, they went back. But you could see it was coming. You could see that he had that in him, like, this is the guy. That's why, next year, Flag and Bailey, both of them, they're dogs. They'd throw their mother under the bus to win a game. And so that's you need that. And you want that to come in and be an influence on your team with all these youngsters, and go, oh, I can see this in a couple of years as these guys start to get in their early to mid 20s, like, look what this could be. Halliburton, Doncic, and Doncic had an advantage. He was playing against men from the time he was 14, but SGA, who's older now, he's mid 20s now, but it took him a while to get to that, develop to where now he's an assassin. I'm not sure how you defend that guy. That's what you got to have.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is the perfect season to see what you got. If you go out and you get, let's say, for some reason, Risache drops, or we move up to get him, and then you draft, let's see, who would even be there? Let's say you get Salon at 14. This is the year.
I doubt
he probably won't be there. He probably won't be there. But
he's doing well enough, and he's getting enough buzz that I think he's going to. A while ago, that was going to be possible. I think he's, as everyone else is at combines, and he's in playoffs, and he's still producing game video and highlights. I think that's gonna.
So who drops then? If he moves up, who drops? Because, so I was looking at the NBA.com has they do a consensus mock. So they go and they go through all the other mock drafts, and then they pull them together into a consensus mock draft. And so, the number one pick, hands down, is Sar. 10 different mocks have him as the number one. Number two, they have Risache to the Wizards. 4 different mocks have him at number 2. Number 3, they have Reed Shepherd, which I can see it. I think the Rockets will trade the pick. I really do. But but just for the
I don't think the Rockets aren't taking Reed
yeah,
Shepherd. If Reed Shepherd goes 3, it's just someone else.
yeah.
My opinion, that's.
But 3 different mocks have him there. Topic at 4 to the Spurs. 4 different mocks have him going to the Spurs. Buzelis to the Pistons, which I think the main reason why people are making that assumption is because Buzelis' agent is the brother of Arn Tellem, the VP of the Pistons. So there's this familial connection between Buzelis and the Pistons, and they're thinking they've taken so many guards lately that they're thinking they can just go get Buzelis. I don't know what the Pistons are going to do. I think they should trade it, frankly, but they need some actual players right now.
The Pistons. You talk about bad luck. I mean, one, they haven't drafted real well. I think everyone thought Cade Cunningham was going to be better than he was, but some of the other and Duren played well last year. He was hurt quite a bit.
Yeah.
But they don't seem to have much of a leader. No one has fallen every year in the draft more than the Pistons. I mean, every year they drop 2, 3, 4 spots. Like, my goodness.
Yeah, but at the same time,
they run into a bunch of bad luck.
Yeah, but at the same time, they had the number 1 pick, and then they just have drafted terribly. Ivy was not good. I've been extremely unimpressed with that guy.
Maybe wasn't good, but Cunningham was the, he was the acknowledged number 1 pick that year.
And they got Thompson, who's, very promising, but they keep drafting guards basically. So I could see why they would go after a bigger guy like Buzelis. But so 5 different mocks have him going to the Pistons. Then they have Castle going to the Hornets at 6. 4 different mocks have him going there. Then for us, it's like they can't decide. Either Donovan Clingan or Dalton Connect, and which is weird. I guess I think the problem is that the mocks have been all over the place for us. So
right.
the best they could come up with was two different mocks each. 2 mocks had us taking Clingan, 2 had us taking Connect.
I can't see them taking Clingan. Connect would be. Listen, Scoot and Sharp and everyone would love Connect because he will stretch the floor.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot leave him open. He's going to knock down shots. He's pretty athletic. Again, he's one of these not negative wingspan, but he's an equal wingspan guy, which I'm not thrilled at. But he's a hard worker. If it was between those two, or Portland, he would come in and make a difference just for everyone else because everyone else is going to be 4-on-4 because you are going to have to stay out on him. I think he's going to be a pretty good shooter right from the start. But looking at that, you still have Cody Williams and Ron Holland and Tijan Salon, who they have going at 14 to Portland. I don't think he's going to be there. If he is, I would love it. If he fell to 14... Take him.
He's the guy that I would love to take at 14.
Oh, I would love to take him at 14. 7 I think is too high, and so we're kind of stuck.
Yeah.
Now, if, as has been rumored a couple places, if Portland were to move to 3, why are they doing that? Who is up there at 3 that you are so convinced that you want, it isn't going to drop to you at 7? That you would make the move to go get. Now, understanding you're moving a veteran that you probably want to move anyhow, so it's not costing you that much. But let's say it was 7 in Brogdon for 3 and maybe one of their second round picks or whatever. Okay. Who are you taking at 3? I'm not taking Reed Shepherd.
No.
I'm not taking Topic.
It's gonna be Reese Shea if he's there, if he's still available.
Well, if he drops, and see, that's what my conversation is. I think they would move up if they could get Reese Shea, but if he goes 2, I don't think they do it.
But is he the best fit for the Wizards? That they need a star.
They need everything. So anything is a good fit for them.
I just don't. I don't see a good. I don't see the guy that they need.
Now what?
They need a building block, and none of these guys are.
What sucks is he would go to Washington and his career would die.
Oh yeah, because there's nobody around him to support him.
and he'll never get the ball with Jordan Poole there. So
Yeah, that's a terrible fit for
it's
him.
if he were to drop, yes, I take him at 3. That's if there's a trade available, and because he's not going to fall to 7. I don't think. I know one of the mocks or a couple of them have him falling to 7, but I don't think he will. And that's the guy you want, and it costs you your 7 in Brogdon. Okay, we have a log jam anyhow at the 2 at the guard. So if that's who Schmitz wants, I'm fine with that. Other than him, though, if Sar and Risa Shea go 1-2, I, I don't know who I'm moving up for. That's that me obviously. I a lot of these guys I don't know a lot about. I couldn't tell you. I didn't see Dillingham play enough. I don't like. I've seen highlights. I've watched tape, but I just didn't get a good enough feel for him. Topic I know very little about other than the highlight videos I've watched. Same with Shepard. Yeah, athletic, can jump, shoot the 3, but gosh, he's small.
Yeah, I none of those guys are worth moving up for. I really, I mean,
No,
you're better off just rolling the dice and whoever's actually falls to 7. I wouldn't, to go back, I would not take Klingon or Connect at 7. I actually like Connect a lot. I know you and I have talked about that off the air. I think he would be fantastic next to Scoot. Just his ability to run off the ball and catch and shoot and just be a pain in the defense's butt. I think he would be great because the Blazers need shooting in the worst way. They were the worst team in 3-point shooting. So getting somebody that can really bomb it would be awesome. I don't think he's the guy to take at 7. I would love to take him if you could get like the 9th or the 10th pick or something like that, 11th. Then that would make a lot of sense. But I just don't think he's the guy. I would rather take Cody Williams at 7 or Holland than Klingon or Connect, just because of their potential.
yeah,
Klingon and Connect are not going to be stars. I don't care how well they play. It's not going to happen. Neither one of those guys are from that cloth. Holland,
Connect could be an all-star, maybe. The guy that gets chosen by coaches at the end because he's shooting 44% from 3. But yeah, I don't see him being a star, and Klingon I don't see being a star at all. So yeah, I agree. Even though rookie year, I think Connect will be better than Holland or Williams. Williams, gosh, he's got to put some weight on. 178. Is that what he 180? What did he
something
weigh?
like that.
178.
Yeah, he was really skinny.
That's I mean, Ant is up to like put on weight to get to 195, and he looks skinny. And Cody Williams is 20 pounds less, and he's taller by 5 inches, 4 or 5 inches. Jeez, that's a rail.
Yeah,
He's going to have to put on some weight. Holland has a little more weight, a little more NBA body to him. And if he can put on, 10, 15 pounds, I don't know enough about Williams and the family and his brother playing and how much he's been able to what their frames are. It's like how much could he put on him? He's got to get it 6'9", 6'8". Got to be 205 at least. You would think. That's almost 30 pounds. That's a lot. And does that affect his athleticism and his quickness and stuff? So that's my concern with him is he is just rail thin. Now, Kevin Durant was rail thin, but Cody Williams isn't Kevin Durant.
yeah, yeah. I was kind of also curious. So, Sean Livingston, who came into the league at 6'7", so slightly shorter, 186. So a little bit shorter and a little bit more weight, but same thing, rail. And that dude's
And think how skinny Sean Livingston was when
yeah.
you remember back and
Well,
you're just like
he
he
broke
was
like a twig. He snapped like a
toothpick.
twig.
Yeah.
His knee just fell apart. So, yeah, I like his potential. I think you give him in a weight room, you get him on a nutrition give him a nutritionist like they all do, and I'm sure he'll put on muscle. But most of these guys are, I think, projected to be solid NBA starters. It just depends on the position. So
Well,
okay. So let's.
what do you do? What do you do at 14 then?
I take the best player available. I don't care who it is. I would just go BPA.
What if that was Zach Edey?
I'd do it. I mean, if
Would you be out now?
I don't care. 14 is so far back at this point that I would just take the biggest swing we can take. If that's Salon, if that's Edey, if that's I don't care. Whoever it is. If that's Ware, how do you say his first name? Khalil.
Well, it's almost like the Superman's dad, but not quite.
Yeah. So he's getting a lot of buzz. Missy is getting a lot of buzz. There's a lot of guys that would fit into that kind of
Missy's
high
got
potential.
Missy's a guy that Jim identified pretty early on when he was down in the mid second round, and he thought that he would be pretty solid. It's been interesting to watch him rise. He's been good. I don't trust Ware. Part of that's just watching him play for the Ducks. I mean, he's got incredible potential, but I have huge questions about his motor.
Yeah, which could really backfire if you're going full youth next year, and you just don't have the strong voices in the locker room that you did last year with Brogdon and Grant and Thibault. So I think you want to be careful who you bring in if you are going to go full tank mode, because you just don't want any cancers, because that could really go bad very fast if you have players that are going to be chemistry issues. But 14 for me. But what I would love to do is, let's put our imagination hats on. Let's say in theory, Risaché's there at 3. They package Brogdon and 7 for some filler, and number 3 they move up to get Risaché. Here's the thing.
I think your filler is one of Eason or Cam Whitmore. I think one of those guys comes back.
I don't think it'll be that much value. I think.
Well, I think those guys haven't been as much value as they thought they were going to be, and they're log jammed, so they're not like Whitmore's not getting a lot of time.
Okay, so here's here's what I think would happen, because I just don't think. I think they're going to see the move from 7 to 3 as being enough value for Brogdon. His value is kind of iffy,
especially in this year. Especially in this year where you don't have, the fall off is potentially after 2 and certainly after 3, and so 3 to 10 is almost is a grab bag. So I don't think it should take too much to move up. Like in some years it would, but not this year. And there's some website that projects and gives point values to players at certain positions, what a number 1 is worth, what a 2 is. If you're trying to move up, you have to, you should have to package an 8 and an 11 would get you to number 6 or to number 5. This year, that's out the window. It's like, it's not enough really here to move up for. If you're at 10 and you want to move up to 7, it's like a second round pick. It's just not, there's not enough perceived value in that to have to include a lot.
Okay, so here's a question. Would you do Brogdon 7 for Jock Landale, Jae'Sean Tate, and 3? Because those guys are roughly worth about $15 million, and Brogdon is 22.5. So would you do that? Is Brogdon worth more than that?
I wouldn't, but I can see Portland doing it because that gets them under the luxury tax and makes them instead of a payer, they are a receiver.
See, I'm not worried about that.
It would do it before the draft.
So I would See, you were already saying this earlier in the show, but I would go full tank mode. So what I would do is, like I said, I think this is the draft where teams are going to be a willing partner to dump lottery picks. So here's the teams that actually have draft cap space this summer. So you have Detroit has an ungodly amount of cap space, almost $65 million in cap space.
Wow.
They can almost take all of our veterans by themselves without sending anything back. I'm not saying we're doing that, but I'm just saying they have an insane amount of cap space with nobody realistically wanting to go there. I mean, I don't know who they're going to sign.
No one, and that's the thing. They have the cap space. No one wants to go there. And I've heard that they may let their coach go.
Maybe. Yeah.
By sometime this year, and he's signed to a fortune because that's the only way they could get him to go there. He didn't want to go there.
Yeah. They're a mess. They're an absolute mess. So you got Detroit with 65 mil, Philly's at 55. I think they're gonna go after somebody like Paul George, or they're gonna take a big swing. I don't know who they're gonna go after, but they're gonna take a big swing.
George is the most likely, I think, for them to make throw out an offer to, whether he accepts it. But that's the most likely. Yeah, maybe.
He didn't work there the first time though, so I don't know.
Yeah.
But then you got Utah at 38 million, OKC's at 35, Orlando's at 25. San Antonio's at 21, and then that's kind of it. Charlotte has like 5 million. That's it. Those are the teams. So you've got really about 6 teams that have.
There's a lot in Orlando that they want. And
there's tons of smoke coming from there.
They're not even being subtle about it. It's pretty much, we want Ant, hometown guy, and it's exactly what we need. Now the problem is, what do they ship back? Because the reason they need him is because the 19 guards they have on their roster are all crap. They're going to want to send one or two of those back just for the cap space. And it's like, man, ick.
I would do, so I know this has come up, but I would do Wendell Carter, Anthony Black as just being kind of a project backup guard.
Yeah.
And then I would want their pick, which is 18, I think. Honestly, I would just do it. Simons is not he's a good player, but I just don't.
Well, and I would take, if it's 18 and it's NBA mock draft, has Tristan De Silva at 18, and I would be perfectly fine with him.
Or move up. Take 14 and 18 and move up. So here's what I would do. Tell me
to do that.
Tell me what you think about this. This is my dream draft day. Okay, so you move. Risa Shea drops to 3. You trade Brogdon and 7 for filler and 3. Take Risa Shea. Then you trade Simons to the Magic for Wendell Carter, Anthony Black, 18. You take 18 and 14, move up. Whoever's willing to deal, and I guess it just kind of depends on who you want at that place. The 3 players,
maybe the Spurs, if who they want is not
gone.
There,
yeah,
because they need a lot of talent. So if they might take a couple because it's their second pick.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the Jazz, because I think they want someone more than just another young rookie. I think they might want something else. I don't know.
Put a pin in that one though, because what I would love to do is trade Grant and Williams to the Thunder for Giddey and 12, and that way, and then maybe one more pick. I don't know how married they are to the Heat 2025 pick. I would love to get 2 picks out of them for those players.
Grant and Williams.
For Giddey, who I think you might be able to flip to the Spurs, because the Spurs are looking for a point guard, somebody that can pass to Wemby.
So Grant Williams 18. Was it Grant Williams 18 and 14? Grant Williams 18 and 14.
Well, 18 is part of the Simons thing. So OKC's at 12. So I would send them Grant and Williams, no picks, just Grant and Williams for 12 and Giddey. And then maybe, I guess if you think you could push for like the 2025 Heat pick, I don't know if they would trade that or not. But
so we're going to have 12, 14, and 18?
Yeah, but I want to move up. So what I'm thinking is you trade 12, maybe you keep 12, but you try to trade 14 and 18 to move up into the top 10. 10, maybe 10, either 8, 9, or 10. My goal would be to try to come away with Reece Shea and then either Holland, Williams, or Connect. So you're getting a couple of one of those guys. I don't know who's going to be there. But yeah,
the only problem with that is they all play the same position.
I think Reece Shea is a power forward. I think he's a power forward. I think he's a stretch. I think he's a stretch power forward. Well, power forwards don't really exist. Like real power forwards don't really exist anymore.
I know, but he's how much does he weigh? 205. Yeah, that's a good way to die, is to play power forward at 205. I get it's more of a stretch and there's not the big power forwards they used to have, but that's still too young, too small to throw him at power forward. Maybe as he gets older and stronger and he can move into that, but not to start him off. That's a good way to not build him for success.
So I think you almost have to build the same way that the Thunder built around SGA, where Scoot is probably not going to ever be just a dead eye shooter from three. I think he's going to get to a respectable place. I could see him being around 35% or something like that, but he's never going to be a 40% 3-point shooter. I think he's going to more so be a drive and kick guy or a mid-range jumper guy, very much like SGA. And so you want to put guys around him that can shoot. You want to put guys that can spread the floor to open up the lane. That's essentially what the Thunder were doing. So I think we have so many different guys that you could swap around. So like if you want to go more traditional, you put Jabari or Kamara in at power forward, and they're gonna bang in the post. Or if you want to stretch the floor more, you put Reece Shea at power forward. But I don't know. I just I think what I'm intrigued by is grabbing different guys. Maybe it's Salon. Maybe you get Salon at 10. I honestly don't know how high he's gonna climb, but
I bet he's somewhere in that 10 to 12 range.
Yeah, he might be just out of reach of our 14. I don't know. I think I'd be trying to package, acquiring those mid draft picks to try to move up, and I don't know who that would be for.
I'm doing anything I can if I have a bunch of draft picks to trade them for something in 25, 26, even if it's protected.
I don't even know.
I don't know that anyone will do that, but that's what I would. You need it. Yeah, we'll throw a pick and a player. A veteran. You need somebody, because some of these teams are, some of these better teams. You're like, well, Grizzlies, if they get back, they get back their gun carrier, should be better. 13, they should be better. And so do you offer them something, because they're more in a win now mode? Bulls, Heat, 76ers. There's quite a few teams there's like, hey, you need a piece. It's not so much about the pick. We'll trade you a pick. And, Sixers, you missed out on Paul George, and Tobias Harris left. We'll trade you a Jeremy Grant for a pick. Now Philly's picks are all over the place. That's maybe a bad example. But OKC, you got tons of picks, and they all have a lot of protection on them and stuff, but still, there's some teams out there that I would do anything I could to get my hands on anything in the next 2 years. Yeah,
and that's why I think OKC's a great partner for Grant, because everybody's saying that they need size. They need a power forward. They need a backup center. And
Now, the problem
so,
is that they need more size than they need a little more bulk. They're very small. They're very spindly.
yeah. But
They
Grant
need somebody.
Grant really fits their mold though. He spreads the floor.
Yeah,
He's
he
not.
does.
I don't know. I maybe not. Uh, Maybe not OKC. I mean, supposedly Detroit is desperate to make some kind of trade. To make the team semi more respectable next year. The GM's desperate because
Well,
he's.
there's a lot of they're getting a lot of flack over there because it's been so long and they one have either haven't picked well or just keep getting just bad luck in the lottery, and so they're stuck a little bit. There is some pressure on the GM and the organization to do something actually good and not just draft another young player that they've seemed to have messed up on. It's like, yeah, we actually need something to get us out of this.
Yeah, I agree, and I think so. I mean, they're another team that might be interested in bringing Grant back. I don't know if they're gonna move the fifth pick though, but
I can't imagine bring Grant back, but
I just I don't think they really wanted to get rid of him. I think they just were reluctant to pay the guy. But at the same time, they're in a tough spot. I mean, they've been so bad. I don't think they were intentionally trying to be bad this year. They just were. They were that bad. So I don't know. And they really haven't come away from those drafts with much to show for how many years in the lottery, top of the lottery. So I think they're desperate. They've got an absolute ridiculous amount of cap space. So I can't imagine anybody signing there unless they just massively overpay. I don't.
they're going to have to massively over. They're going to have to massively overpay, which I think is going to upset chemistry even more because it's going to be somebody that probably really doesn't want to be there, is only there for the paycheck, like the coach, and it's going to it's going to make even a bigger mess.
Like,
So
like who? OG Anunoby? I mean, did they just throw a max contract at OG? Because who else is going to go there? Here's the free agents. LeBron has a player option. Paul George has a player option. LeBron's not going there. Paul George isn't going there. Klay Thompson, Tobias Harris, James Harden, Pascal Siakam. I don't think Siakam's. There's no way Indiana lets him walk. They're going to give him a max contract.
no,
Gordon Hayward is terrible.
I could. Gordon Hayward's not going to get paid again. I could see Tobias Harris maybe going to Detroit and just collecting a paycheck.
Yeah, but he's not that good anymore, is he? I mean, he's really not. He's 31.
Well, it's not going to be a big max paycheck, but it'll be something good size.
But here's the rest of the guys. You got Kyle
And
Lowry, who's retired and he doesn't know it. DeMar DeRozan, Buddy Hield, Bruce Brown, Evan Fournier, who's already on Detroit, D'Angelo Russell,
college.
OG. Here's what I'm saying. OG Anunoby. I could see Detroit throwing some kind of stupid contract at him because he's 28 or 26 and he's almost 27, and he's a really good 3-and-D wing. I could see them throwing some kind of stupid contract at OG. That's the kind of move the Blazers would do, right? This guy that's not a star, but you're so desperate to bring someone in that's talented and you have all this cap space. That's exactly the kind of player that we would have thrown a max contract at. Gary Trent, Markelle Fultz, Bertans, Candavius Caldwell-Pope, Valanciunas, Malik Beasley. There's just nobody. I mean, it's just they are not going to have their best bet is to take lopsided trades. That's really what they've got is lopsided trades. So I could see. I honestly, if I were them, I would trade the pick. If I could get a decent starter, I would.
Yeah, but I don't think Portland's a good trade partner for them. Obviously, things could easily work because they're cap space, but Brogdon's not going to want to go there, and that would
No.
you would get ill will from the rest of the league if you did that. Grant does not want to go back. And who would you send over there? There's places where Blazer players I can see after July 1, someone like Eibel going to Dallas who wanted him in the first place.
Would you
And
send?
he wanted
Okay,
there.
question. Would you send Ayton to the Pistons for the 5th pick and Duran?
Duran?
If they're desperate?
Yes. Yes. Even though, Ayton's much more of a more accomplished offensive player and he's a bigger player. Duran, well, you got to check medicals because Duran was hurt, for a good portion of the year. But when he played, and there were some things he could do. You're like, my goodness, and it's what we saw when he was down at Memphis in college. It's like, my goodness, that's a man child at 6'10". He's not super tall and big, but he's ridiculously strong and athletic and long. He's got a great wingspan, so his height isn't that big of a deal. Defensively, he locks down boards and blocks shots. If you could do that, and for number 5, I'd think about that pretty hard because that's the one guy that I would probably keep out of all the veterans, and now you really reset. Everyone's young. Everyone's under 22 that's in that starter mode. Yeah, Kamara, but but everyone's under 22 and they're just like, okay, these guys are going to grow together, learn together. And he's the type of guy that you want as a defensive rebounding to get the ball out to. Not that Ayton rebounds really well, doesn't block a lot of shots. But Duran's the type of guy that I think fits well with a bunch of other talented scoring offensive types where Ayton wants probably a few more shots. I think Duran gets away with not scoring as much. He's going to score more on putbacks and dunks and lobs and probably isn't so big about, getting touches, 15 feet from the basket and shooting jumpers, which Ayton's incredibly good at. One of the best in the league at that for a big. So that's not a knock on him. I just, with some of the guys coming in, how many shots are there going to be to go around? If Scoot's going to want his, Shaden's going to want his, this year's draft picks are going to want theirs, and next year's draft picks probably going to want theirs. You're going to need somebody that's okay with playing defense and getting their 12 to 16 points off of second chances, lobs, and not touching the ball a lot. So I would do that.
Yeah.
That was a long answer.
I'm not really against trading. Frankly, I'm not against trading anybody, for the right trade package. But I'd like to keep Ayton just because I think he and Scoot were starting to build some good chemistry. I'm actually not in a huge rush to trade Thibault because I don't think he's worth much, and I actually really like him as a locker room guy. He plays defense. He can occasionally shoot the 3, and he's just a really fantastic chemistry guy. So I'm not a huge.
He's a great guy. He's so cerebral. He's the deep thinker in the room for sure.
So I'm not in a huge rush to just dump him for nothing because honestly, I don't think we're gonna get anything for him. And I think he has value just as a chemistry guy. But Grant, Simons, Brogdon, and Williams, I'd be trying to move all 4 of those guys. Williams, if you can get anything for him, I'm just so worried. I guess his value might be at rock bottom, so maybe you want to keep him and hope he stays healthy long enough to the deadline. But
I think Williams is more. He has to prove he can get on the floor, so he's a trade deadline guy. Grant and Brogdon are the ones that would be, and Simons are the ones that are maybe more this.
And this is the year because Simons has what 2 years left on his contract, and
and I think Danny's always been, Meringue has always been, it's one more year until you have to trade him, and that might be even until you have to trade him. I just don't know. I think it was his exit interview where he said, he wants to win more, and that's not going to happen here this year.
No.
So is he not going to be happy with that? I don't think, as offensively talented as he is, I don't think he fits here with what Portland's going to be able to put together, what they have, and what they're going to go get. I don't think he fits here long term for a contender because what contenders have a 6'3", 6'4" point guard who can't play defense as their shooting guard, or he's the point guard and he's not really a point guard. I mean, he can play it a little. Shooting guard is his best spot, but defensively, I mean, that's just it's not great. And with the pieces around it doesn't fit now. There's other teams that he would be just fine. I think he'd be great in San Antonio. Defense wouldn't be so much of an issue, and he and Wemby, oh my goodness,
Yeah.
they'd be tremendous together. But here, I don't think that fits quite so well, especially with what Portland has, because eventually, if you keep him, you're going to have to admit that Scoot and Sharp weren't it, and you missed it, and maybe that's the case. Sometimes you have to make that call. It's like, we did it, we thought it was right, and you have to be able to recover. You have to be able to admit, yeah, that one didn't work out. We need to move on. Like they did. I mean, credit where credit is due. They paid Alan Crabb, which no one could understand why, but at least they got out of it the next year. Okay, props, kudos. At least you figured out that you screwed up. Some people will just hold on to it and go, nope. CJ's my guy with Dame, ride or die. It's like, no, it's not going to work. When has it ever worked? Historically, point out one time when two small guards who are scorers and need the ball to be their most effective and can't play defense. When has that worked ever? I'll wait. Well, it never has.
Yeah.
You got to admit that, okay, time to move.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is the summer. I think there's a market for Simons. I think the Magic would love to have him. I think you got to move Brogdon. And I think that they will because they sat him all the rest of the year. I don't think there's any stomach to come back with him. Plus, this is his last year of his contract.
Right. He just didn't want to be traded in the middle of the year. He really, like, man, I came over here, my family and the kids and the education, the schools, and he really, my understanding is he really requested not to be moved, and they're like, okay, we'll not. But I don't think that's going to wait much longer. I think now in the off season, by the deadline for sure. But I think it's better if he goes somewhere from the start. Williams, I think he needs to play. Grant would be fine from the start. And Ant. So there's three guys. And then what could you get out of Ant, young player and a pick, Brogdon, cap filler and a pick, maybe a young player, and then Grant. I don't know what his trade value is and where he could. I mean, there's some teams. Yes, I think he could fit on OKC because that's kind of their style. Even though I think that they need a little more bulky size than they need, Grant type size. I could see him working in Golden State. I could see him working. I mean, there's a number of different places where I think he would be fine, and there's a market enough for him because of his skills. So I'm move it out, play the young guys, and think and just hope, because this is the year to do it, because that next year's draft has a number of those players that you need, the guy types, not a guy, the guy, and there's a number of them next year, and even the year after. I mean, you got 2026, and I don't know how to pronounce his name, but AJ Debonsa, whatever, and he's replaced Cameron Boozer, Carlos's kid, as the number one pick. And now he doesn't have a great wingspan. I'm not huge on that. I know Jim's already talked about him, but he's an it guy. And that's a good draft too. But next year you've got just a couple of them. You've got several of them. It's like, man, why would we try and win games this year? With what we've got, we're not going to win that many anyhow. So put yourself in the best possible position, and you hope. You gotta hope you get one of those top 2-3 guys.
Yeah, I just think I look at OKC and I see a team that they desperately, they were so close, and if they want to take that next step, they need some more reinforcements. And if you look at they have $35 million in cap space, but who are they going to go get? Like the power forwards that are on the market this year, Tobias Harris, but like he's almost 32. So are you going to throw some big contract at him when he's almost 32 years old? I mean, Grant's a couple years younger than him. Siakam would be the big trophy, but I don't think they can offer as much as Indy can.
I don't think he leaves. I don't think
he leaves Indiana. Right? That's it. The rest of the players are the kind of the dregs of the league. The guys that are just kind of role players. So Grant, I think Grant has more value than people give him credit for because he's a 20-point per game scorer. He can score within a system.
I'll tell you what, the power forward for them, and I could see this happening. I don't know. I mean, because it would get him another title. They've got so many draft picks. Why wouldn't they use one on Bronny and have LeBron come play power forward for them?
I cannot see him going to Oklahoma. Like, let's be honest here. I cannot see LeBron James playing in Oklahoma.
But that gets him another title.
Yeah.
And at this point in his career, and he's only going to do it for a year or two, and he's done. It gets him a ring.
But
you put him on that team and have him play power forward, and you're not beating that team.
Here's the problem. They're not taking him at 12. So when's their next pick? They pick at, so let's see, round 1. They only have 1 pick in the first round. Did you know that? That's kind of crazy for them.
All their picks. It starts next year, I think. But they've got.
They don't have a second round pick. I'm looking at it. They don't have one. A second round pick? They don't. They're not going to take Bronny at 12. So.
They could easily go get one. They've got the assets and the picks.
Yeah.
If they wanted one and that's what they wanted to do, they could offer up to buy a pick from someone in the late first round or early second round who's got I mean, if they came to Portland and said, "Hey, we want your 34th pick. We'll give you a 25 protected pick next year." Why would Portland not do that? Of course they would. They draft Bronny. LeBron comes over, wins it. They win a title. It's a no-brainer. Why would they not do that? And LeBron would get to play with his kid for a year or two, and then calls it and has another ring, and that would be number 6.
You know who has 2 late first-round picks though? The Knicks. 24 and 25. You want to talk about a team rolling the dice on Papa Bron? That would be super interesting. I also have heard rumors about Dallas because, LeBron and Kyrie were pretty close.
Yeah.
You put LeBron at power forward next to Luka and Kyrie. That would be interesting.
Mavs don't have a pick. They traded theirs away.
They only have 1 pick at the very, very end of the second round. That's it. That's all they got.
So here's another team that could do it. What if the T-Wolves did it?
Again,
if they're number 27.
You know what? I think LeBron, if a team picks him that's just the Siberia of the league, I think he'll be like, "Yep, I just wanted to see LeBron. I want to see Bronny get to the league," and that would be it. I don't think he's going to uproot.
Well, it's Siberia, but if they're in the finals and they lose to the Celtics, and LeBron goes there and comes back and beats the Celtics in the final next year, I don't care if it's Siberia. That means something.
You know what's weird though? That's never been LeBron's thing.
And it would be his 4th title or 4th different team he would have won a title with. Because he won one with Cleveland, won 2 with Miami, won one with LA. It'd be his 4th team. So I get it, the NBA Siberia, but if you're winning, it's the cold. It doesn't matter nearly as much.
Here's the problem, though. LeBron.
I don't know what's happening.
LeBron's never been a coattail guy, right? So, I mean, in a way, you could make the theory that Miami was really Wade, LeBron, and Bosh deciding together to sign there. So it wasn't like he was joining a complete team that was ready to win a championship. Like, they basically built that team. Then he goes back to Cleveland, and Cleveland is like, Cleveland's a joke, right? They're terrible.
He came to Cleveland because they had some pieces and they had the number 1 pick, and he came to the Lakers because basically said, "I'm coming if you get Anthony Davis."
Yeah, but they didn't have Davis. They played a year without him, right? So, it looks like I lost your camera, which is probably a good sign that we should probably end because we've been talking for an hour, almost an hour and a half. So this is probably a good place to wind it up. Are you still there, Larry?
Yeah.
Okay. Your camera. Yeah, your camera decided to die. So it's a good place to end. We will have to try to do a mock draft. Fanspo has a fantastic mock draft system. I don't know if you've played around with it, but it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's a good site. Period.
Yeah, it really is. Speaking of that, I'm really disappointed at how Spotrac went subscriber based. A lot of the stuff on their site now is locked behind membership, which is sad. Really? I hate that. I hate that a lot of these sites have gone like Basketball Reference and I get it. They have content and they want to be able to make money. I wish that their memberships were a heck of a lot cheaper, because as just a casual fan, I just can't really justify spending money on something like that. I just won't use them. So, but yeah, we'll have to put together. I'd love to get Jim if he ever has some free time, but I really want to do. Well, there's plenty of time. We've got like a month until the draft, so plenty of time to have him join in the next month to do a draft episode. But I'm really hoping that the Blazers are working the phones. If we do end up only taking somebody at 7 and 14, I'm fine with that. I think that there's some guys there that could be really intriguing for next season. But at the end of the day, this is my favorite time of the year. I love all the front office stuff. I like the free agents, the drafts, the trades. This is my favorite stuff. You still there, Larry? All right, folks. I think I lost Larry, so I'm going to go ahead and end the episode. Thank you all for joining the Blazer Metrics podcast. I know we've been gone for a while. We're going to try to do regular episodes a little bit more now that my kid is a little over 3 months. So things have normalized a little bit. But thank you again for joining. Like, rate, review, subscribe, all those great things, and have a great evening.